Okay, welcome to the April 21st, 2014 work session. Work sessions are a more informal setting to update the council on business items. No votes will be taken on work session items. Tonight there are 2 items on the agenda. Public comment is allowed that is germane to an agenda item. If you wish to speak, you are required to fill out a public comment card and turn it in to the city clerk. Public comment will be allowed for a total of 10 minutes per agenda item and no more than 2 minutes per person. Public comment will be heard at the beginning of each item. Once the item is called, no other public cards will be accepted. Do we have any public comment cards?
We do not, sir.
All right. So let's move on to our first agenda item.
First
The
item
city clerk would please call that item.
First item is discussion of City Hall programming, site design. Mr. Chris Lagerblum.
Mayor and Council, I'll start this, and then Kathy will take it over here shortly. We need to start having discussions. Hello.
Hello. Are we going to need the monitors?
Yes,
or?
you are.
We
So
are.
go ahead and keep them up.
Okay.
And I'll go back and see. We're going to start having discussions. Now that we've acquired land for City Hall, we need to start having the discussions of what that site design looks like. Very high-level conceptual things at this point as to some of your desires as we start to design the site out, design the facility itself, and start to put some real stuff on paper. You know, we do have the benefit of having a city architect. He spent some time at this point doing a couple of different site layouts just so you'd have something to react to. Success tonight is to just start the dialogue because we need to, again, we're working towards a calendar that has us in the facility in April of 2017. We are on track. This is preliminary site design. That's the part of the calendar we're in. I just want to see, number one, how you react to some of the things that Bob has put together so far. And then at the end, and I'll start with the end in mind, we're going to send you with kind of a questionnaire / opportunity for you to respond to us individually rather than collectively, so that as we start to seek input from you, I'd like to kind of know what your thoughts are and what your thoughts are, not what they necessarily are in the context of a public meeting, but what your thoughts about Milton's first City Hall are, so that we can start to identify themes, much like we've done when we've done strategic planning or budget retreats, so I can get that feedback, try to establish themes, and then we'll bring back presentations to see if we capture what you're saying. So tonight, this is just a round discussion. Nothing's off the table. Everything's on the table. It's kind of neat to start with a blank piece of land and say, let's figure out what makes sense for Milton's future on it. So having said that, Kathy, you ready to take it away with this presentation? Bob, unfortunately, can't be with us tonight. He had an illness in his family. I believe it's with one of his parents. So he had to quickly get out of town. So we apologize for that. But Kathy's more than versed in this, and then I'll supplement her as need be. So, take it away.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, let me just start with this. As you know, we've got $10 million allocated to this project. Land acquisition will be just under $1 million. Subsurface water project will also be just under $1 million, which will leave the amount for the building costs to be $8 million plus. We have started the program development, and you can see by the spreadsheet that we are starting to look at each individual staff member within City Hall to see what their duties are, what type of functions they perform, how much square footage they would need. And so we will be taking this programming, and this becomes the basis, of course, for the concept development plan. So we are well underway with this, as you'll see.
This screen is just an example that we're underway with it. Don't focus
Yeah,
in on 12.
yeah, you don't have to. Yeah.
Okay.
I
This
mean,
isn't to say my eyes were hurting.
This is
Yeah,
just
yeah, oh,
to
no,
show you
please,
that this is in
please.
progress. This is not a complete.
yeah. We won't have any tests on this. I mean, it's just to. Okay. As Chris mentioned, however, we will be sending out a survey to all of you, and some of the things that we'll be looking to obtain from you will be your ideas on architectural style for the exterior of this building, the height and number of floors, types of materials that you would like to see, again, cover the exterior, the building layout, and also your thoughts on the use of council chambers. And I'm going to further talk about these issues by means of a proposed site plan. And this is a site plan that was a result of a landscape architect who's a student getting a master's degree at UGA. And for a class project, he came to us and asked to design the landscape exterior for the City Hall complex. And in order for him to come up with a landscaping plan, we had to come up with a layout of the buildings for City Hall. So in order to get your creative juices going, I'm just going to use this as an example. And you may like parts of it, you may hate parts of it, but as you fill out your survey, at least it will creatively stimulate, I think, your thoughts on what City Hall should be. So having said that, let me just start with this. And I don't have a pointer, so I'm just going to sort of verbally describe all this. As you can see, we visualize a 3-building campus. The largest building on the left side, looking at you, would be the administrative building. And we see that as 2 floors. The second floor of it is the right-hand side, the widest part of that building, which is basically the right half, would be the second floor. The first floor would comprise approximately 14,000 square feet. The second floor would be 8,000 square feet. We then look at the second building heading to your right, which is a detached building, but there is a covered entryway that connects from the administrative building into this. And this would we propose to be the council chambers. It could be a very iconic-looking building, very light, airy. And it could be cut off after hours so that you wouldn't, if you had meetings in the council chambers, you wouldn't have to go through the administrative building. It would have its separate entrance. And we see in this building not only the council chambers, public restrooms, an executive conference room, as well as a ceremonial mayor's office. This building would have French doors in the council chambers that would lead outside. One more thing about the council.
Can I ask? Just for the record, I didn't have anything to do with that.
That is correct. This is purely community development staff.
To be confirmed.
Chris, remember when
Those are the reactions we're looking for.
I'm not so sure. I remember we went down and met with
One other.
the City of Atlanta mayor. He had the ceremonial mayor's office.
Okay. One other item for the council chambers, and that you'll see that on your survey as well, is how you foresee the council chambers working. Do you see a very formal room? You know, we've looked at the Alpharetta plans, and we've been to Duluth City Hall, for instance, and they both have fixed chairs with an auditorium slanted floor setup. The alternative is to have chairs that are not fixed, pretty much like what's behind me, and have the ability to use it as a multi-purpose room. The community development staff went with the multi-purpose room setup because what that allows us is that when you have events, you would have French doors leading outside, and they would lead into what we see as a very interactive civic space. And that is that open space plaza that you see there. The plaza would have, in the center, it would have a fountain. On the bottom left, you'd have a grove with movable furniture, tables and chairs underneath. If you've been to the High Museum, just before you enter it, there's a lovely grove of trees with movable chairs and tables underneath it. And so that's sort of what is foreseen. On the top right of this plaza, there is space for the city Christmas tree. And then on the left is another grove. Flanking on the east side of this plaza is a third building, and that is a proposed visitor center. And that would be proposed to be 2,500 square feet, or it could be smaller, with a tower. That little X attached to it represents a tower. And that would also have public restrooms that could be accessed from the outside of the building as well as inside, so that if the public needed restrooms, these would be available rather than coming into City Hall. It would be an option.
Kathy, is this oriented, I see the north arrow on there, but just thinking, is it still kind of looking out towards the back of like the gas station? Is that kind of what this flows? The view, like looking from the administrative building through the council chambers?
It's heading east. Yes, it is heading east.
Straight east, like directly towards Birmingham, or
Northeast.
It's sort of a northeast.
Okay.
It's sort of not quite. It's not a true. It's because there's a curve there on the road as it comes around.
So the main
When those come
buildings
over
are going to
here,
be
the brownstones are
forward
down that
towards
way.
Crabapple Road.
The main buildings will be on our new road.
Okay.
Okay, and I should have brought the whole site plan, but
So if you continued on the bottom of the thing, if you continued going left, you'd go in front of those brownstones that are going in front
Yes.
of the new road. Okay.
that is
Right.
correct. That's right.
Okay.
Okay, so the third building is a visitor center. It could be 2,500 smaller, and that could be a nice small meeting room. Think of the MGG when they meet. Rather than coming into City Hall and opening up any of the other buildings, it would provide a nice community meeting room. There could be a fireplace there, and again, the public bathrooms accessible from inside as well as outside. And again, there would be French doors leading out, so that you could have events and that they could utilize both of the structures that are along the periphery of this public space. In addition, behind this complex, you see two types of parking. On the left side is your traditional parking. On the right side, separated by a landscape strip, is overflow parking. And it is conceived that those would be, that the paving would be pervious pavers. And that could be used for overflow parking, but also when we had our wine festival or a craft beer festival, Taste of Milton, whatever, you could have the overflow of the events with tents and whatnot on that pervious paver parking area, so that becomes an overflow of events. So the idea was to make this very interactive and to separate the uses from administrative to the council to the visitor center. There was an original thought to have the council chambers, as you're looking at this building, on the left side as opposed to the right side. But what that did is that it didn't really allow us to really flow out from the council chambers into a space, into a civic plaza, which locating the council chambers on the right end of the administrative building allowed us to do. And finally, the landscape area to the very left of the building as you're looking at it is conceived to be more for employees, for picnic tables and whatnot, for them to have their lunch or take a break or whatnot. So that was the plan that Tyler Johnson from UGA came up with in terms of landscaping, with our help in terms of how we saw a possible City Hall campus to look. And with that, let me just move on to project schedule, just to let you know that City Hall is under program development, which is essentially, all right, I can't see without my glasses either, which is the pre-design phase, which according to our schedule started March 15th and will go on through May 1st of this year. So we are in the appropriate schedule for program development, and the next phase will be the schematic design phase, and on and on. So that is that. And then lastly, we have the stormwater facility storage project, and Carter is in the construction document phase, and he anticipates to meet this deadline of having those construction documents done by July 1st. So I wanted just to show you that from a scheduling point of view, we are on schedule. Are there any questions?
Comments or feedback? I mean, that's kind of what we're here for tonight. We wanted to throw something out to let you start reacting to it. And, you know, if we were to have a conversation, it'd be about the massing and about buildings and about orientation on the site, and any of those things are fair topics tonight, just to start the discussion.
Are we going to get copies of this presentation to work with?
Sure,
Sure.
absolutely. Yeah, we can provide, I'll provide it to you. If you're okay with it, I'll provide it to you electronically by email. You can have it before the end of the night, as well as the questionnaire I'll provide to you electronically. I'll send you with a paper copy too.
Right.
And so the bigger issue or the bigger idea with this whole concept is we probably haven't thought of everything, and that's okay. So if you add to the questionnaire with something we didn't ask you, that's okay. If you come up with something as we give you these documents and you say, they didn't think about, you and I had a discussion last week about the need for probably to start thinking about where we were going to put a memorial garden or memorials on the site somewhere. We didn't think about that, but that's great. So those are the kind of things that we need to start pulling out as we start to put some design to this thing. So,
I just say, I like in general, the concept of having our chambers separate from the building but attached. And the courtyard area, I would say to the thought of putting a ceremonial mayor's office, I wouldn't necessarily be supportive of that unless it were just maybe a ceremonial mayor and council's office that, if you had folks that wanted to meet with you before a meeting or after or whatever, that, everybody could use. But I certainly think my term's still down, but I don't want to have a ceremonial office.
Let's go back to the previous slide. You had scheduled the programming phase. So it looks like we're going to complete the programming phase within the next 2 weeks then. Who's involved with the programming?
That's Bob and myself.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're pretty well moving through that, and we might be a week behind because of Bob's unanticipated flight down to Florida this week. But we're moving through that. At some point, we're going to have to know whether we have 1 building, 2 buildings, or 3 buildings, because that will have an effect as we develop the concept plan. So.
Okay, you're going to do design build then, I see. Is that confirmed? That it's going to be a design build?
Carter can answer that better than I can.
I don't know that it's written in stone as of yet, but that's certainly the direction we're heading. I think some of that will come out as we work through this programming phase and get some feedback and input from the mayor and city council. But I think based on this schedule, that was probably the best way that we could work that project in.
Carter and Kathy, your question is on the pre-design and program phase, just talking about doing that in-house.
That's correct.
With our assets that we have, and then get it to a point that when it goes out for bid for a design team and construction, at least have the basics for what.
That's right. That's one of the great things about having some of that capability in-house now with Bob. We're able to do a lot of this on our own and have a lot of information available to the contractors and professionals when we're ready to get to the design stage. So I think it's working out really well so far.
Okay.
My concern with the separate visitor center is, number one, the cost of a whole separate building, and number two, it's got to be staffed. I mean, there's no need to have a visitor center unless you're going to have it open 7 days a week, at least 8 to 12 hours per day. And I don't want us to do, whereas if you had it may be within the somehow or another within the building itself, you might be able to make it a little easier than if it was in a whole separate building where somebody literally was off there in a building all by themselves all day long, which is what it would really end up being.
What was the intent or your use of the visitor in general, the visitor center?
Well, it had a couple. Our thought was that it would frame the Civic Plaza. It would close it in. There would be 2 buildings, one on either side. It would have a tower to it with some height, so it would give an identification in terms of where the campus was located. It would have outdoor public bathrooms that could be accessed from outside, from outdoors. so that if people were looking for public bathrooms rather than coming into City Hall, this would be easier for them to access. And then just another meeting space, and whether or not it was fully staffed, of course, that's something we could think about. But the idea being just another meeting space without having to open the rest of the complex. You could have a meeting room there with a fireplace. It could be used for events or whatnot.
I would almost rather see it as part of the council chambers and all encompassed there together, so that you didn't maybe end up having, because if you look at where the regular city hall is going to be, and then you have to go through the council chambers to get to the visitor center, there's a person that's going to be out there all by themselves 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. That's, that's kind of out there by yourself.
Yeah, yes.
So, and it's not something like they could run down the hall and ask a question. They'd have to lock up the whole center and put a be right back sign or whatever on it anytime they did anything. So, I don't know if there's a way to encompass it and put something else out there that would be kind of, because I like the idea of having something high and something framing the outside of it. But does it have to be a whole separate building that would have to be manned?
Let me ask a question on that, Joe. Are we calling it maybe something different? I think probably to Karen's point, a visitor center, you're thinking, a place that's manned and got information about the city and all that. But is the real intent, one, architecturally, to tie, the campus together? Number two, to maybe be a meeting spot that some of our volunteer groups and other meetings can take place and whatnot. But it's not necessarily a place that's open, every day. It's manned as necessary, or if meetings are, and like you said with the bathrooms. But is maybe that something to think about, that it's not necessarily a manned building or whatever, 12 hours a day or whatever, but more of a space that is unlocked and staffed when there's going to be a meeting or an event or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just asking that, so if that makes sense. But Joe.
Yeah, and I was thinking that, visitor centers sort of overlaps in terms of, why people would show up at this place originally. So if they're coming specifically to do business with the city, they're not really going to go to the visitor center. They're going to go straight into the city building, and somebody there is going to assist them in terms of navigating to wherever they need to go. Traditional visitor center, well, I would agree, maybe there's manning it with volunteers or having somebody present all the time. There's also the option of making it, more automated than that, and not requiring somebody sitting there interacting with visitors who walk in. If they're just driving down, or they wind up in the Crabapple area, they walk in here, maybe they just need to be presented with material, information, literature on what the city is, what it's about, the areas of the city, that kind of thing. And I think we could make that pretty interactive from a technology point of view. Of course, that's my. I went there first. So but certainly I understand what Karen's concerns are, because that could be.
It seems like it'd be a lot more cost too for a whole separate third building than it would be if somehow or another it could be incorporated into one of the existing two buildings.
Conserve the space.
Yeah, it seems like that would, is that the best use of our limited funds for a whole third building that we're really not sure what we're going to do with until we let Joe take it over and have it fully automated.
That's good feedback. I wouldn't envision that we need somebody sitting out there waiting on the one visitor a week that's going to stop by to see if they can get directions to the old blind dog.
Right there.
Yeah. But I do see that there's potentially some value. Maybe it's just described a little bit differently as there being a space, and maybe it fits there, maybe it doesn't, but a space that would be accessible at times when City Hall or the council chambers wasn't necessarily open. If somebody needed a space, and we get requests for that quite frequently, and it's very expensive to keep the main building open when if you can grant access to a public space that doesn't have to come with all of the overhead of keeping a big space open, maybe there's some value in that. But to the point of staffing it, you're totally right there. We would either automate it or not do it.
Yeah,
I think it'd be a good place too to have, some artifacts or museum type, little things, or maybe the story of the old county and then the city and the beginnings of that, you know, is, you know, part of the decor.
Bill?
I'm all in favor of conservative schedule, especially up front. Making sure you got enough time allotted for each task here. But being design build, and since we are the end user, we're doing the conceptual drawings. I see some overlapping tasks here through design development, CDs, and building department review and council review as kind of activities in series. I see them running in parallel, and I would hope that through the design development and construction document, or through the design development process, that we would have updated documents to look at and critique as we're going along, instead of getting down to the wire there and reviewing it and having to start all over again. Been through that process. So, I'm sure that's what you had in mind, but just looking at the schedule here, that it implies that it's all done in series. Probably the fellow sitting in the audience here ought to come up here and replace me in my seat. I'm sure he could ask some good questions or give good comments. I think there's probably going to be enough consensus here on council before we even get into the DD portion of it here that we're going to be pretty close in concept and in final form of the whole programming part of this. Hopefully the final council review and the building department review is going to be a smaller time slot on our schedule.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
Ma'am?
Can we go back to the map real quick on here?
Pardon me?
Can we go to the map? The map?
Oh, the plan?
I'm trying to think about this picture in context with the overall layout of the area, and considering I sat there for 8 hours on Saturday selling books, looking at this site, I kind of thought it'd be kind of nice if we had the piazza. I think the bottom section needs to be flipped, where we have more of the community center more towards Crabapple Road and the Old Blind Dog Pub, as most of our community and our businesses and such will be down there. So I want to make sure that as people come in, I don't want to see a back end of a building where most people are driving by, more or less. I'd like to see that kind of be on the front end. So if you could maybe flip the bottom so that a piazza would be on the southern end.
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble hearing you. You'd like to flip where the council building is?
Yeah.
The chambers
or
to the other
even,
side?
Even the building as such, I would take that. I could see the layout being where it is, but maybe where the main plaza is be on the left instead of on the right, because that would be more where, basically, if I'm seeing this right, where everything ought to be. Is the Old Blind Dog Pub southeast?
It's right back, it's right here.
Is it down here?
Yeah, it's right over here.
So
Yeah, we're pointing at a 45-degree angle away from it.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, because going down that way is where you get to the brownstones, so.
My conceptual point is I just want to make sure where people gather, if it's going to be on the main plaza, that'll be more towards the Crabapple Road area, however that lines up on this thing. So if it's more on the right, we have some on the left. This is where the parking is. We're right here. That's the retention pond area, right?
So one of the things we'll send you, because I've heard that over, is we'll send you this overlaid on a map that's oriented.
So I want to make sure it's got a good presence as you're going around that curve and seeing seeing the building. We need to make sure we've got you don't want it to look like as you're going around there, you're looking at the back or side of a building. You want to make it look like you're looking at the face of the city.
Right.
Right.
And that's what I'm getting at.
Do we,
In no uncertain terms.
we don't have, right now, what we just got is the top-down view. We don't have anything like a, elevation. Because I think that's what we're talking about, is elevation, and what's it gonna look like, what's the
Well,
front.
that's why we're looking for your input, because we don't know, is this going to be a rural-looking building, a contemporary-looking building, an historic-looking building? I mean, those are all the things that we're trying to flush out.
On the little
Yeah.
sort of questionnaire or whatever.
No,
that
well,
got.
That'll be all in the questionnaire.
Okay.
We're trying to get your feedback so that we can start to designing it, but we don't really know at this point.
Well, I kind of think to Matt's point that if that section that would be under the second story there on the bottom, if it kind of looked, had some steps up to it where it looked like it was leading in, even though that might not be the main entrance.
Yeah. Yes.
That way it kind of looks like that's the entrance versus where the parking is up at the back, more of the back entrance, if you will.
Right. And we
Even though the
had
building's
we had actually done
linear the
that,
other
yes.
way.
But that's a very good point. I'm glad you mentioned that because with the form-based code, you do have a street presence, and so we do want to emulate that as part of this development as well. So.
And I don't know why I think it'd be kind of neat too. Obviously, you mentioned on that large building on the left, you have one section of that's 2 stories, and the rest of it is 1 story. Well, maybe above that 1 story area, you can have an upscale outdoor patio or whatever for, I don't know, if community events or something like that. I just don't know. I'm just thinking if it's a community building and we have the space, we don't just need it to be rooftop. It could be something else that we can use for people to see, especially since that's an area where everything's kind of lifted up and you have higher things, whatever. It's just an idea. So, just a thought.
Rooftop bar. Got it.
Now, is your thought of the council chambers and all that being a 1-story or a 2-story building?
It's a 1-story building.
It's a 1-story. So you've got the 1-story, the 2-story in the middle, then the 1-story on the other side, and then our little other building.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the takeaway to Matt and Bert's point is just to keep in mind presence with the siding of the building, which obviously the professional designers are going to do.
Right,
But
right.
to lay it all out to
Yeah,
where
we're very concerned about that it does have a presence, absolutely.
Your patio would not be considered really part of the city, so that whatever anyone wanted to have up there refreshment-wise would be available.
That, or it could be, a memorial walkway about Milton or something. I don't know. It could be an upstairs deal, something like that. So just, and it could be an upstairs park in a sense. I don't know.
Put a park on the roof.
Yeah.
Okay.
Green roof.
Okay. So what you'll get as a follow-up of tonight's meeting is you will get this presentation. You'll get a copy of this master site plan, whatever, this picture. You'll get a copy of it with it overlaid upon an actual crabapple map so you can see the orientation of the structures as they exist. I'd love your feedback on that. And then you're also going to get this questionnaire that's going to start to ask you about design elements and design feel and those kind of things. And anything else you think is important. I mean, if you'd like to have a certain kind of tree planted at City Hall, any of those little things that you think, well, maybe that doesn't matter. Go ahead and let it matter at this point in the exercise because the worst that can happen is we'll capture it and decide later that it doesn't fit. But the palette is open, I guess, at this point.
And, and to Bill's point, feel free to reach out if you want to switch places with certain people in the audience, but feel free to reach out and get input. And the whole purpose of the questionnaire is so that everybody individually can give all their points and the staff can take them. And there may be a pattern there that everybody's picking up on, and then there may be some that are out on the, but it gives us without putting everybody on the spot, it gives us a direction to kind of be looking. So, all right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, Sudi, if you'll call our next item.
Next item is discussion of welcome to Milton city signs. Ms. Michelle McIntosh Ross.
Hi, good afternoon or good evening. So I'll just give you an update on our signs. Last time we came up here, we looked at this draft of the proposed Welcome to Milton sign. That'll be going at Highway 9 and Webb Road. And I talked with the sign company today, and they'll be done first week of May. So we should be getting that sign in between the 5th of May and 9th of May. So that should be good, and Jason is on board for pictures, and we'll talk about that later when we get that in there. So this is the large sign. It's 11-foot wide, horse fence, 5 foot high, and then we have the shield that's in there. Now, we have some locations that I'll go through later on where the large signs are appropriate, but there are also some locations in Milton that a smaller sign would be more appropriate because that large sign might be too dramatic and it just may not fit and so on. So this is the Freedom Park sign, and As for size, we can use that size. Not sure if we want to do a miniature horse fence with that or just do 2 posts. But in any event, those are the 2 designs. We would actually use the shield design of this one onto the smaller sign. Okay? These are the locations that we think the large signs would be appropriate. Weber 9, Forsyth County Line at Highway 9, Birmingham Highway at Cherokee, Cogburn at Wynwood, and Cogburn at Alpharetta Line, Bethany Bennett Morris, Hamby Road at Forsyth Line, Hopewell Road at Alpharetta Line, and Freemanville at the Alpharetta Line.
What about on Arnold Mill?
On a mill, because the topo moves off the road and just slopes all the way up, there's just no way a big sign could fit there, so we have it proposed for a smaller sign. Okay? So these are the smaller sign proposed locations: Hopewell at Phillips, Mountain Road at Freemanville, Hickory Flat at Lower Alabama, New Bullpen at Cherokee, Bates.
Lower Birmingham.
Oh, I'm sorry. Birmingham. You're just so used to it, right?
This is good.
They have a problem
Birmingham.
permitting that one.
Batesville at Cherokee, Wilkie Road at Cherokee, Westbrook Road at Cherokee, Long Street at Forsyth, Francis at Forsyth, 140 at Roswell Line, Arnold Mill at Cherokee Line. That's the one I think you were talking about, Karen. Mid Broadwell at Alpharetta, Providence at Alpharetta, Bethany Bennett Mayfield, Bethany Bennett Strickland, maybe, or Bethany Bennett Forsyth Line. It's sort of in the same area. We'd have to decide on that one. And Broadwell at the Broadwell Park. Not sure. That's not. We would have to work something out when we do the park. This is how we're thinking. Instead of just putting a sign, we would work it into whatever we're doing at the Broadwell Park.
Michelle, I'm sorry, did you say anything on Hamby? I didn't see.
Yes.
Is it a large sign or a small sign?
It would be small, but where is it? Was it large?
It's a large. It was on the previous slide. I missed
Hamby
it.
at
I'm sorry.
Forsyth Line? Yeah.
Okay, large sign on Hamby. That's good.
Yeah. All right, so that's the proposed. Okay, so here are the considerations for this whole sign thing. Like I mentioned earlier, we're getting the sign at Webb Road and 9. That's the area that we know we have right-of-way. It's GDOT right-of-way. The right-of-way has been surveyed, and we have permission to put the sign in the right-of-way from GDOT, et cetera. So we're moving forward with that. Now, all of these other locations, we may or may not have right-of-way available. So first of all, we need to do a survey to figure out where there's sufficient right-of-way to put the signs. And then if we do have sufficient right-of-way, which maybe not, we can go ahead and put a sign. Now, on the areas that come up to be insufficient right-of-way, let me move on. The areas that come up to be insufficient right-of-way, we would have to start the process of acquiring easements. So both situations adds time to the process. So we were thinking that in the interim, as we work on surveying and getting right-of-way and easements and whatever we have to do to get the nice big signs with the horse fences in, could we use the existing signposts and attach, let me get my props.
Photoshop.
All right, and so we can attach the new logo on one of these, what are we calling it? It's diamond grade aluminum signs.
Carol Merrill is now pointing.
And, I asked them about the shield, using the shield as opposed to a rectangle. And, okay. And the recommendation is to go with a rectangular version, only because with the shield, you have to cut so much out of the rectangle, and you would have to make the sign so much larger in order for the text to be able to be readable, that we would end up having 2 posts with a big sign, which we can do if we want to do that, but they just figure it'll be so expensive because you do have to buy the rectangle and then cut it out. Or we can, next slide, they went ahead and did a version for me of what it would look like with some dimensions of, can't see, what does it say? 3 feet by 2. Okay, 3 feet by 2.5 for a sign like that. Now this one, we would probably still need to post, but it wouldn't be as big. And the price for this sort of thing would be $150. It takes a week and a half to 2 weeks to make, and we can order those and plop it on our existing signposts in the interim while we work on getting the nice horse fence signs. So, discussion.
What's the time, hold on, Joe, because I think I know, what's the timing on, and you may have already said, but getting the right of way to where we can put the permanent signs? Any idea?
Well,
I know that there is
not
several.
really an idea, because
Carter's getting good at that.
right, because the first thing it would be in his shop in terms of getting a surveyor out to go survey where right of way is. So, and then the report would let us know, the lines where the right of way is. Do we have enough? Do we not have enough? Take that information. If we don't have enough, we have to start the process of the easements and buying from.
We can't do just like other people do and put them in and ask for forgiveness?
Deidre will come by there on Monday and
How
pull
that
them
would
up.
work.
Would we really have to survey it, or can we just know what the right of way is and pull from the center line of the road and get a,
We
you know?
have to encroach some of the, off the right of way.
If we were going to do formal easements, we'd have to right away to get.
But I mean, that initial, seeing if we have to do easements.
Well, the initial
Or do you know?
scene.
They know they do.
Yeah, the problem is most of our right-of-way is very limited. We
Okay.
may be 50, at best 60 feet, with the exception of Hopewell Road, which we have 80. But we have very limited information on exactly what our right-of-way is around the city. So it would be a guess at this point at each of these locations whether or not we have enough. Then we run in, particularly with the bigger signs, drainage issues, sight distance issues, clear zone issues that we're looking at on most of these. So just getting the survey established, or the right-of-way established, there's really not much more for them to go out and stake it out and take a look at what we actually have in the field.
So the takeaway, what you guys need from us is, do we want to put the temporary signs up in the majority of those locations that aren't ready? That may take some time before we can put them.
That's I think the takeaway, because we've got some signs out there now, and we are going to move towards the plan. The plan is the big signs in those locations and the small signs in those locations, but it's just going to take making sure that as each one goes in, that we can legally put it in. So I know one of the things that's a very important, it seems to be very important to the council, is the desire that when you arrive in Milton, you know that you've arrived there. And I've heard that time and time again. So we have almost a first step solution that gets to this, closer to the brand that we are trying to perpetuate at this point. If you'd like us, and I guess that's the question, is do you want us to take the ones we currently have, and in the short term, while we work to the large and small signs, would you like to see them swapped out to the new Milton brand?
And how much
however
would
they
that be
exist?
total?
Say $150 a sign?
Yeah, $150 a sign. We got 20.
Carter will know that
20
off the top of his head.
Cleaning out the garage, it's very dusty. Got like
Right, if
3
the
or 4.
signs are $150 a piece, then we're going to add probably another $150 for posts. We could generally install those under our current contract, so there's probably not really any labor charges that we would be incurring doing the actual installation. So you're somewhere in the neighborhood of $300 to $350 for the temporary sign.
We have how many of them?
Are we actually adding signs where there aren't signs today, or would we just be replacing existing signs?
There were like 3 areas on my assessment that when I looked, sorry. There was 3 areas that when I looked, there was not a sign, but it could have been it was knocked down at the time. So I'm not sure, but yeah,
So what
most
we're really,
of them would have posts already.
so the majority of the spots already have city signs, it's just the old sign. And we're talking about swapping out until we can get the right of way. Do we want to do that? Do we want to
If you
incur
want
that
us
cost?
to, or if you just want us to leave alone what's out there until we can get the more permanent sign up. So based on those numbers, that total project cost at 26 signs at 300 is right at $7,000.
I guess my question is there really a need to do the change out before we do the permanent from a cost standpoint? what are we gaining? I don't know if we gain that
If we
much
waited this
personally.
long,
yeah.
I could wait.
Yeah, I don't know that you do either. I just know that in order to acquire the easements that we need to acquire, and I know there was some drive of the council to get it done soon. You know, our timeline of getting it done is extended a little bit beyond where I was comfortable just saying, let's put it on hold and to go back to the council at some point. So that's the reason for bringing it forward.
I'm okay with saying, I mean, as long as we get it started, I'm happy with that. I just don't know if we need to expend additional costs as a temporary solution in the meantime. So long as the community knows that they're coming and one by one we start putting it in there, and kind of be a nice surprise they wake up one day and see a new sign in a spot where they hadn't seen one prior. So so long as we do it gradually, but we are moving forward in that direction, I'm happy with it.
I think we may get some questions if we go and change out and put a new
Change
sign
it
in
out
now, and
temporary.
then a year from now, we put another new sign in, people's gonna start saying, you know, are we having to change our signs every year?
Yeah, I guess my input would be, I'm fine with it. If we've got these locations already covered, telling you when you come into the city, I'm fine with the green signs until we actually start to change out the permanent and do it the right way with the easement. That's my input anyway.
Bill?
So go back again. The small signs, are they the oval sign on a smaller scale?
Yeah.
Or the rectangular sign?
Oh, which ones? You talking about this small sign or these small signs? Tiny signs? Between.
Okay, the permanent small sign.
Uh-huh.
I understand the
Will it be the
question.
same?
Yeah, I understand the question that you're asking. When the permanent sign goes in eventually, the large sign will be the one on the slide prior to this,
Right,
and the small sign will be that.
okay.
So it'll be on two posts.
With the same text?
Same text
that's
as the
on
large one.
That's correct.
Large sign, okay.
There will be consistency in them. They will not be square. They'll be
Okay.
like
That's my concern.
Yeah. Same colors, same materials, etc.
Got it. I'd agree. I wouldn't spend the money to put up temporary signs. I don't think it's a good use of our funds.
good deal. So the other good takeaway from this was just to also be able to tell you that here in the next couple of weeks you're going to see this first big one go up on say big one, the large sign.
And how many?
Not nearly as big as Jack Kingston's campaign signs are.
How about Paul Brown's?
Paul
Brown's are the
They've got most of his in
They're
half.
4x4.
But no, this one will be going in there web and 9.
So it'll be kind of right on that corner where we have
That's right.
the holiday tree and.
It's its own
We
structure.
call it a Christmas
too.
tree.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's its own little fencing and everything. It's not
Yeah.
going on the fence.
Yeah, you're right. It's going to have that fence and the sign. And we're going to have plantings as well behind it. Mark is coordinating the plantings.
Okay,
Some
how many of the
prickles.
large signs and how many of the small signs can we put up at this time then, to start off with?
To start off, there's one.
We got one coming soon.
25 to go.
It's a start. It's a start.
Let's see, when do I retire?
No, the one that'll be next, I can bet money on, is the Birmingham Highway 372 up at Cherokee, because we're going to acquire
As you
that,
head south.
that piece of
Okay.
land
Because
right
we had
there.
that property there, so.
Exactly. We'll put it on our property, so we don't have to worry
We don't
about
have to worry
GDOT.
about it. Okay.
Is there an estimation as far as when the whole thing will be completed?
Which whole thing? The whole sign
All
campaign?
the signs, yeah.
I don't know.
What are we shooting for, man? We should have some ideas.
Well,
Or real
because
estate.
at some point, like at some locations, it's definitely off the right of way will be somebody's yard, and some instances in Alpharetta, and we doubt that Alpharetta person would let us put a sign on their front yard. So some of those may never happen. So I don't know what we'll call it when it's finished. We'll just drop some off, like can't do it. But how long does it take to get easements? I don't know.
Nothing if they sign right away.
Well, yeah.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that we truly don't know the answer to that question. So we'll proceed with them systematically, and it'll be an interesting trick to condemn land in Alpharetta. We've never tried that. We'll have to figure out how that works. I'm just kidding.
Well, what'll happen is people will ask us when we think we'll be done with that, and just an idea.
It's an active, yeah. I don't want to manage your expectations. Don't want to overcommit and underdeliver. But it sounds as though we've got some work to do on these big signs. So how about if I, Sudie, why don't you, since you're great at capturing me following back up with the council, why don't we put this on a 120-day follow-up to the council, and I'll bring you back a better update, see where we've gone in the next 120 days.
Okay. That concludes our work session then.